Well, welcome to Justice Served TV. I'm Linda Kenny Baden. You notice that the other side of the screen right now is empty, and that's because my co-host, Michael Bryant, is on his way back. He was at the Daniel Penny trial. Remember, he's our camera at the Daniel Penny trial. All that's been going on in New York City. He's going to give us that live report, and he will be joining us. His ETA is about 6:08, so I expect him pretty soon. But we have a lot to discuss before that because breaking news, guess what? The state finally rested in the YSL case. Finally rested. Oh my gosh. I mean, I can't wait to have Doug Weinstein on after he gives his closing argument. We don't really want to bother him right now. Hi, Missy. How are you? Yes, thank you for joining us. But we have a number of clips to discuss because so many things happened today. It began as I tweeted at Kenny Baden in my Twitter account, using some of Doug's words. New day, same stuff. Okay. And what was that about? That's because we led off today with, again, investigator Veverito. Remember, she doesn't want to be seen. She's got behind the camera, even though she's all over the internet. As a matter of fact, Thugger Daily today posted kind of a picture of her when I guess she was going out partying or something like that, saying, hey, this is ridiculous. You don't want to be seen when you're seen looking like this all over the internet. And you have no objection to your pictures being shown. But, we understand that maybe when it's on TV, it gets people's emotions get kind of like, and therefore they'll go after her. We don't want anything to happen to her. That would not be right, obviously. So, but what was the same day about? Well, the judge was admonishing her to answer the questions that was asked. Does that sound like Groundhog Day to you all? Does this really sound like Groundhog Day to you? Because it certainly did to me. She did at one point extend her answer to get in her little digs. I mean, if she were married, they'd be called digs, right? If she were married to Max Short. And he said, and I quote, I knew you would be dying to say that. And we're going to discuss that later. So I want you to listen to one of the clips from today. And we're going to play it right now. Promise. Here we go.
Postings that Mr. Watts made way back in March of 2022.
Correct. But so investigations, just the social media posts aren't enough to arrive at probable cause. You need him maybe on video at the crime scene before that murder, things of that nature. So if the social media was enough for probable cause, a lot of people probably would have gone to jail for this, but we don't do that.
Right, because there were a lot of people posting on social media.
Correct.
A lot of people posting horrible things on social media.
But unfortunately, nobody was on camera at the scene or there. There was no Niven.
Investigator Viverito, I know that you have come with an agenda today, and I know that you want to talk about the security cameras, and we will absolutely talk about the security cameras. I promise you.
Commentary, there's commentary going on both sides. Answer the question that's asked.
Okay.
Well, there you have that, right? I mean, answer the question on both sides. There's a lot of commentary, but it was a pretty big thing. I know you've come with an agenda. So Max Sharp just told that jury who was sitting over there that, hey, wait a second. We have her number, and you, jury, you should have her number. And then he went on, and what he did is he went on to talk about, that video where young thug Jeffrey Williams said that he rules the world, and then he's got 24 million on someone's head, or he doesn't say he said 24 million on someone's head. And she put that in a warrant, and she circled it. And why did she circle it? She circled it because she wanted to tell, according to Viverito's testimony today, that he had a lot of money, and therefore he had 24 million, and therefore he could control things, and he would be the big cheese, as they used to say in the movies when they had movies that were talking about the underworld mob bosses. Misleading much, was it? Because Max Sharp, in a beautiful cross-examination, got her to admit that it could be the $24 million diamond ring that was on another rapper's head. $24 diamond, $24 million diamond that was put on another rapper's head. Okay, so was it misleading that she said in the word? But he gave the benefit of the doubt. You wouldn't want to lie to the court, would you? You wouldn't want to lie to the court. And she said, of course, no, I wouldn't want to lie to the court. And then it went on, because then there was an issue of, remember that Glock, or the issue of the Glock pistol that was there? Well, there was a picture yesterday of the Glock pistol. I put it on my Twitter page, my X page, if you want to go look at it. And she became to say, well, it looked like a Glock to me, because it turns out she didn't own one. And she didn't own a Glock 27, which is a lightweight Glock, according to the testimony. She went to a store and she handled one because she was deciding whether to buy that or some other the other pistol, and she ended up with the 40 caliber because she liked the heavier pistol. So he said, so now you're an expert from photos on a Glock 27, which, by the way, you don't even own. And I see, by the way, as we're talking about this, that Michael Bryant may have been joining the chat. He's getting ready. But so she backed down and she said she was not a firearms expert. Another win for the defense. So now we're going to watch something that happened after they had a break at lunch. And that's apparently when Viverito went outside in the hallway, she encountered Miss Bumpus, who allegedly is married to Shannon, or was married to Shannon Stillwell, right? And of course, no one knows whether that's the case. Remember, Bumpus really broke this case wide open when she got news that in chambers, Judge Glanville had met with Lil Woody. But I want you to listen to Doug Weinstein getting up there, our Doug making this motion. And we're going to show you this video right now.
Burrito, as well as any evidence that came under her. And the reason I make this motion, Your Honor, is yesterday it came up that she had not been, that she had been following the case. The court asked me to not pursue that. I'm not.
Come up that she had been following the case. It came up that she knew that somebody had mentioned her on Twitter.
Okay, and your opinion would have been different if she was following the case? Because
No, if you know that she was following the case, that doesn't exclude her as a witness. You can let the jury know that.
Okay, because
You can ask her that.
I can ask her about her following the case?
Sure, and we'll see what she says.
Okay.
And if that's so, then it still doesn't exclude her testimony. It just lets the jury know, well, she may know some of this other stuff from listening to some other witness.
Okay, because what I would like to get into, and we may as well bring it up now before the jury is here, is that she got into an altercation out in the hallway with Kayla Bumpus.
Why is that relevant to the guilt or innocence?
I'm about to go there, Your Honor.
Okay.
Just let me finish a second. She got into it because she was watching Kayla Bumpus's YouTube feed about this case. And Kayla Bumpus apparently called her.
Okay. You may get into whether she has been tracking this case.
Mm-hmm.
You may not get into whether she got into a dispute with somebody
about
their posts.
It gets into her bias against these defendants, Your Honor. It goes directly to it.
What are you proposing to ask?
I'm proposing to ask if she told Kayla Bumpus in the hallway that was the last time she was going to call her a hoe. It goes direct.
I'm sorry, the last time who was going to call?
Kayla, sorry for the pronouns, that Kayla Bumpus was going to call Investigator Viverito.
We need to get into who it was, or just that somebody?
I think we need to get into who it was.
Why?
Because she's married to Mr. Jackson.
Well, was she at the time? Is this for real, y'all?
Yeah. Well,
none of this is relevant. Whatever is happening between Ms. Bumpus, Mr. Jackson, this has nothing to do with the guilt or innocence.
Unfortunately, the bias of a witness. Well, fortunately, or I strike that. It is not fortunate or unfortunate, except for the fact that it is dragging this case on even longer. But a witness's bias towards a party may always be shown.
If she is in a dispute, if she's
Don't talk at the same time.
Kayla Bumpus is not a party to this incident. Kayla.
Yes, but if she's married to one of the parties, then that might qualify.
I don't know I'm not the proponent of this evidence. I'm hearing Mr. Weinstein out, but my silence should not be viewed as acquiescence that I believe this should be admitted. I need to hear what Mr. Weinstein's saying because I may have an objection myself.
What I'm saying is that if there is a relationship between Ms. Bumpus and the defendant, then Investigator Viverito's bias against that.
Against being called a bad name?
No, if she is in an altercation with someone that's in a relationship with the defendant, I think, and especially if it is a threat, because
How is that a threat?
that's the last time you're going to call me a hoe. I mean, I've had clients arrested for less.
I love this clip, okay? First, Viverito is admonished by the court. Hello, Michael Bryan, you coming right at the... That's the last time she's going to call me a hoe. All right, now, I mean, unbelievable what went on today in the court. When we started, Michael Bryan, glad you could join us. I told him you were covering Daniel Penny, so to excuse you for being late. And we started with Viverito getting, we can't hear you. We can't hear you, okay? He still can't hear you, but that's okay. All right. The girls are fighting, Missy Mayhem. Good evening. The girls are fighting. Yes. So anyhow, so we started with Viverito getting admonished. We started with her getting pulled and racked and raked over that 24 million that it turns out it was the diamond. Chart got her to admit she's not an expert in firearms. Then we go to this. And then, by the way, it followed with this because the judge said, is this real? I'm not going there right now. Even you can ask whatever you want to ask, but I'm not going there. Then we got Viverito to admit that she, again, is not a firearms expert because she was trying to say, well, she wouldn't expect to see a muzzle flash with the video when there was, remember with the video with the shooting, the murder, which is a very important part. She wouldn't expect to see a muzzle flash. So then Max Shark got her to admit that she's not a firearms expert, that there was no damage to the tin of the car on the Drinks murder, if you recall, and that everything else. And so she had to backtrack on that. Finally, she was kind of beaten into submission at the end of her testimony, and all she could respond when asked about the Drinks murder is, you'll have to ask Detective Hogan about that. I would say, Michael Bryan, that I know you were busy, but this was a really good day for the defense and a really good day for the defense to come near a close. Now, as Michael's worrying about his audio, and he may have to re-sign, you have no audio. You may have to re-sign in. Maybe you'll re-sign in as a guest. We'll see. We're going to lose him for a bit because usually he's the one who signs in first. I sign in second, only because he does the heavy lifting along with our producer Dizzy of loading the clips in after I've picked some of the clips out. So he's our tech person, but he'll get back in to this. But so it was a really good day for the defense. Then we ended up with the third clip we want to show you. What was that? After the cross-examination and the redirect ended, and the redirect ended of her pretty wimpily, but the recross of Viverito ended really strongly. And that's when Doug Weinstein got going back to that missing watch. Remember that watch, that missing pink watch? We're not going to hold on with the clip for a second before we get there. The missing pink watch, it got Viverito to admit that she was the last person seen holding that pink Richard Mille watch, which, by the way, it turns out no one in the courtroom can pronounce properly, even Doug yesterday. But then there was a break. And why was there a break? Because the judge wanted to get prepared for the fact that this was going to happen. Will the defendants testify? Let's listen.
Mr. Stillwell, do you personally want to testify or not? All right. I find that each of these defendants has made a decision whether or not to testify with an understanding of his rights. All right. All right, we need to do anything else before we get the jury out, and I'll ask if you rest. And then Have y'all made a decision about whether y'all going to present evidence? Okay, you want to let me know, or you want to be dramatic about it? Okay. All right. All right, then I'll get them out. We'll close the evidence. I'll let them go for today and tomorrow. Have them come back on Thursday. And tomorrow, I mean, we can start the charge conference. And, oh, forgot something. There'll probably be a motion, I suspect. Okay. Okay, Mr. Stillwell, do you
Well, so what that was, I mean, Judge Paige Whitaker, you're not watching Justice Serve TV because I hear a
Am I
voice.
back?
Michael Bright, you're back. I hear a voice because the judge said no, defendants aren't going to testify. We could have told her that, but she wanted to know, are you going to present a case or witnesses, or do you want to be dramatic about it? We could have told her they're not presenting witnesses. Is she not listening to Doug Weinstein here? We were the first one to report exclusively that the defense was not going to present a case. And I can tell you probably why. They don't think the state has proven its case, or they're looking at that jury and they think that jury is burned out, and they don't want to get that jury angry with them, as the jury may already be angry with the state. And you can look at it when you're in a courtroom. It's a whole different thing when you're a lawyer trying the case. We cut witnesses down in cases all the time because we look at the jury and we say they fraud, they had enough. What can this witness bring us? If it's really important, we'll put it on. But if it's not, let's go right to closing. So that's what's going to happen. They're going to go to closings. It looks like maybe Thursday, because the jury is coming back in Thursday. Tomorrow, they're going to have a charge conference, and there's going to be a motion for a directed verdict, Michael Bryant. Now, why didn't the motion for a directed verdict happen today? It's because the defense asked to be delayed for 24 hours while the state suggested to the judge what they were going to argue in RICO, what the RICO charge was going to be, so they could tailor their directed verdict to that. And so, pursuant to, remember what Doug told us, Michael Bryant, they'd bring the expert in. Well, he was there. He was there after, as Here Comes Drama says, Viverito got cooked today. He was there, and he argued that the question was, does the jury have to decide which act of racketeering the defendant committed or agreed to commit? The federal court said no, and the judge agreed, as long as they can agree unanimously that there is an overt act in, not just an overact, but an overact in furtherance of the conspiracy. So that seemed to be a little bit of a win for the state. And I think, therefore, the defense wanted to hear exactly what the judge was going to charge with regard to that. And she's going to pick that up tomorrow. So there's going to be a motion for a directed verdict, more jury arguments on the RICO charge, and then the judge will bring the jury back in Thursday. Tomorrow they'll start at 9. I don't know, probably 9 o'clock on Thursday. And it looks like this case will come to a close. I say either late Friday, or they'll think about it because they got a lot of forms to fill out and come back first thing Monday morning. Michael Bryant, it was a big day in YSL, a huge day in YSL. And I know our chatters here are looking about it. I know they all like that Viverito got cooked today. There was so much happening. And I have to tell you that when we went to pick, and thank you, Dizzy, who with the flu was helping me cut these clips today, because you weren't here, Michael Bryant, because you were at another courtroom being our camera. It was someday, just someday is all I can tell you on that. And then, by the way, the state, just for one more thing, and then I'm going to turn this over to Michael to take over a little bit hosting here. So I'm not talking so much. The state went back to lyrics today. I don't know. There were some lyrics, but Viverito tried to do it. And there is something called the Rap Act Bill. Say that twice. Rap Act Bill. Say it 3 times. Rap Act Bill. Rap Act Bill. I don't know. Maybe that can be.
Is that the one? Is that the one I sent you? That was the one I sent you.
One
right?
you sent me.
Oh, okay.
As, by the way, Doug Weinstein, our friend, tweeted that his client was sitting there writing lyrics as the trial was going on. I can't wait to hear what those lyrics are about. All right. And that's a Rap Act Bill that's going through your House State Representative. We'll try to post on Justice Serve TV a link to it tomorrow, maybe after we finish, or tonight after we finish. And you can ask that your state your state passed this bill, which would prevent lyrics from being used as when they're an artistic expression in a court of law against people. So we have that going on a lot today. Along with
On that note, on that law, and if you read it, it's broader than lyrics. It really says artistic impression or expression. So it goes beyond that. So let's say somebody is an artiste and they do a sketch, and the sketch has somebody holding a gun and shooting it at somebody. You know, that may be protected by that kind of legislation. That in and of itself would not be used against the defendant. Now, we know certain cases, I can think of some of the school shootings where there were drawings of that sort before but let's face it, they didn't rely only on the drawing, right?
Right.
So
exactly.
that kind of artistic expression could also be protected, but certainly the lyrics of these rap songs has been the genesis of that legislation, no doubt about it.
Right. And this case has been the genesis of that because it's been so overly abused that, here we are. We thought the prosecution a month ago said they were probably going to go into 2026, if you recall. And all of a sudden, Jeffrey Williams gets probation. And all of a sudden, you scatter like the rats on the ship, so to speak. Right. And there's only 2 people left. And all of a sudden, the prosecution just has like 2 witnesses left. One of them being investigator Viverito, gang expert.
The Barito.
Who was a gang expert. She tried to be a firearms expert, got caught. She tried to be a muzzle expert, got caught. She tried to be a gun expert in terms of how they look. She got caught. She had to backtrack on all of that today.
Turns out she was a very good defense expert.
She was excellent for the defense.
Probably not the plan by the prosecution.
Yeah. Now, but I can tell you that the defense is worried. I could just listen to them, and they are worried that there's so much here. And if you listen to the arguments between the judge and the quote, the prosecution's expert lawyer on RICO, even that was confusing. How a jury goes in there and says, "Oh, okay, let's see. I can decide on out of the 100 and over 100 was there 147 or 175
overt acts,
right? I'm going to go through each one. And say unanimously whether or not there's at least one that's in furtherance of the conspiracy. But what is the conspiracy? Does that mean they're going to take the overt act of writing a song and furtherance of the conspiracy? They're going to be so confused as to what that means because they were even confused in court as to what it means.
Of course. And what I think is going to happen is you're going to get 1 or 2 people that they're nigglers for those just niggling little things, right? And they're going to try to cram some of these overt acts into a cause of action, the RICO, and they're going to have to be talked out of it. That's what I think is going to happen. They're going to have to be talked off the ledge in trying to concoct some sort of overt act into a specific RICO charge. I just think they're gonna go down that rabbit hole. Hey, I wanted to ask you this, and maybe you did it before I tuned in. We normally don't consider these motions for directed verdict to be anything but really the preparation for appeal, right? You got to make the motion, preserve your record, so that when you go up on appeal, you can say, "Look, appellate court, I made this argument." I think, and this came from some testimony earlier today, I picked up on it somewhere during a lunch break. One of the causes of action having to do with possession of a weapon during a crime, right? Remember, there are a number of possession charges: possession of marijuana or other controlled substances, possession of weapons, and one of them, I think each of the defendants has this remaining. It's a possession charge in commission of a crime. Well, Hilton was saying, a judge, in the indictment, we left out the actual act. We have them tied to a gun, but no act, no actual crime. And the judge, Judge Page said, "Well, I don't think you get a do-over for that. I don't think you get to go back now and fill in the blanks." So that charge in and of itself, whether it applies to both defendants, I'm not sure. It was a little fuzzy. But one of those could go away as part of a directed verdict granted.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't pick up on that, but that's really interesting because it could go away. Now, we also know that the directed verdict, generally, the whole verdict, for the whole case, is not going to go away because she's bringing the jury back. But the fact that it was a great lawyering to say, "Hey, judge, give us time on the directed verdict because we need to be able to represent our client's property to know what the prosecution is going to argue on RICO in terms of the jury charges that you're going to give before we make our directed verdict, which is going to have to be surgical. And so I thought that was some incredible lawyering that you saw today by both Doug Weinstein and Max Shard. Max Shard really took the laboring oar today. Doug Weinstein took the, I got you with the Richard Millet watch and all. But it was someday because we saw the end of the witness. We saw the prosecution rest.
Which we thought would maybe never happen.
Right.
You know, just to hear those words.
The judge almost say, wait a second, I forgot something. There's a directed verdict. We heard the original, some of the arguments on the jury charge. We heard the defendant said, by the way, we only heard one because there was the feed went out again today at one point. So we didn't really get to Doug's client today. It may be on some other, maybe there's another feed that caught it. Doug's client who said he didn't want to testify, but it was very quick. You know how some judges make a real big thing about it? This was like, well,
that's interesting. And they do it for good reason, because the appellate courts have ruled that there has to be knowing, voluntary, and what's the third or that they usually throw in there?
Informed,
voluntary, not coerced. But they usually tick off whatever the state's, prongs are, so that on the record, it's very clear they've consulted, they are knowingly, voluntarily, and willingly waiving their right to testify. And you're right, I saw the upcut, and it just started with Shannon Stillwell, where she just said, so you don't want to testify? Okay. I just thought that was a little loose, and I don't think it's going to be, there's a lot of issues in this case for appeal. If there is a conviction, I don't think that's going to be one of them. But I thought it was odd, and I thought about it because in the context of the Penny case, which we will get into, far less sexy, of course, but it's a pretty important case. And the Penny decision or not to testify, we're on the brink right now, and I fully expect a very labored, are you sure? Have you talked about it? Are you voluntarily, willingly, and intelligently giving up your right to testify? I was just surprised she didn't do that in this case.
Yeah, unless there's some other procedure in Georgia that we don't know about. I mean, this is one of the things you should put on your list to ask Doug, because we can't really bother him right now, right? Because he's getting ready for a closing, and I don't know I don't assume the judge is not going to give him any extra time. She's going to, 2 hours you can do on your head if you've been in this case for 2 years,
Right.
And all. So it really was just a fascinating day because it just went by so fast, and it went by so fast because the cross-examination of Iverito was so targeted and so pointed, and she got admonished not just the one time I showed you, but another time by the court. Just answer the question, and you could clearly tell that this was really she was very angry with Viverito, and that really came across. And she was also angry with the state at one point, and it also came across today. Just like, stop it. Just basically stop it.
I thought she was going to do a John McEnroe. Just answer the question, jerk. No, she didn't go that far. Michelle Corley, Ms. Burrito is incompetent. I think I was surprised that the judge was kind of taking up for Burrito. Weinstein was cross. Maybe she just felt sorry for her because she was getting pummeled. I don't know.
Well, except that she did yell at her a couple of times. Okay, Michelle. So I thought that was, and maybe she figured she better backtrack just a little bit because she doesn't want to be accused. At one point, I think you just heard in that clip when she said it's unfortunate. She said, "Oh, wait a second, but not unfortunate. Nothing is not. It's not. Nothing is unfortunate, or whatever." She kind of backtracked when she says something that could be
prejudicial or biased or something
against one side.
And was that in front of the jury?
Let me think about that. That was not in front of the jury.
Oh, okay.
That was not. So that one was not in front of the jury. That was when there was the Kayla Bumpus right after lunch, which you can't.
And so has that. I hate to even get into this, but so many people have been asking about it and talking about it. And Kayla Bumpus, and I've seen her. I saw her interviewing her former client. Maybe he's still her client, Lil Woody, on her little podcast thing. Which was bizarre.
I love that, but I'd love to have.
If you haven't seen that, check that out. I'll promote it for her. It's bizarre. Just the whole interaction.
She broke the thing. She broke this whole thing open with little Woody being in chambers, right?
Oh yeah. Well, you remember when she testified, because she had to testify about that whole thing. She didn't come off too well, in my opinion. She just seemed like an attorney who really didn't have control over her client or the situation. just my opinion. So anyway, check out her interview with Lil Woody, and I'm not sure he did it maybe to pay off legal fees. I'm not sure, but he did the interview anyway. And so is she married to Shannon Stillwell or not?
The judge said we don't know the answer to that. Okay.
See, now somebody sent me a
That-
note, and I
yeah.
think it was a response to one of the others that I said I'm not getting into that mess. I don't know if it's true, not true. I think it's just it's an off ramp I ain't taking. So somebody said today that the judge actually acknowledged that they were. So I'm asking you.
I wasn't.
I didn't see it.
I thought the judge said I'm not going to go to whether or not she's married or go into that any further or something like that. That was
Okay.
my recollection. But
All right.
the jury notes are different. This is why juries like in a 2-year letter, in a year long into evidence and a year of being picked. Different recollections, right? So I guess we'd have to go back to that videotape. Abate said they were married. Thank you, Dad Pot. Abate said they were married. I don't think the judge said that. I think the judge said, I'm not going to get into whether they are or they're not.
That makes more sense to me. So I wanted to do a fact check on that. I wasn't sure
that was my recollection.
That doesn't mean they aren't. Doesn't mean they are or aren't. It's just it's so irrelevant for this case. There's enough things to deal with. You think it's a bias issue?
That's the last time she was going to call her a hoe. I mean, Doug took great pleasure repeating that line at least 2 times.
Yes, he did say it a few times. Yeah, I thought he might. I thought he might anglicize it a little bit and say, "Well, Judge Ho, that's like whore," but it's kind of a short, truncated version of. He did not feel he had to explain that.
Yeah. Oh, what Miss Chick said? The judge said this is 403.
Yeah, it's definitely 403. There's no doubt about that. I'm not even sure what probative value there is, but it's a lot of prejudice.
But a lot of prejudice, but a lot of fun too, because you can't make it up that got into this case, right? Even with the motion at this point. But maybe it forces them to to tell Viverito to stop it, right? When she gets back on the stand, except the state can't talk to her because she's been in the middle of cross-examination or in the middle of her examination since she got off the stand last Thursday, right? So, whatever.
I'd like to have a drink with Burrito tonight. It's all over now. Like to just have a chat with her, see what's really going on there. She's.
Although I see you're wearing the pink shirt. We're wearing the pink shirt to match the pink. I just want to say it again. Richard Millet watch.
And you're comfortable with Richard Millet? Is that right?
Well, I as I told you, the first time I learned about it, because my office is across the street from the Baccarat Hotel here in New York City, and there was an article during the pandemic about a guy who got rolled by one of the women he brought to his room, and the watch that was stolen, never heard of it before. It was like $1 million watch stolen at Baccarat, and it was a Richard Millet. I didn't really know how to pronounce it until I looked it up during this trial, and then. That also had some drama in it. Okay. Not Here Comes Drama. It had just drama in it because the New York Post, being the New York Post, called the guy's wife and said, "What do you think about your husband's watch being stolen?" But my husband, he didn't know that he was in a room with some woman that wasn't his wife. So that was like, that's
I guess when you can afford those kind of watches, that's a lot of FU money, and your life is whatever you want it to be at any moment. Okay,
I assume that it was all his wife's money after that.
Well, let's see what state. In New York, New York's not a community property state. It's an equitable distribution state. Let the fighting begin. That means if he can prove that he brought all of that wealth to the marriage, she's out of luck. Now, if you're in a community property state like California, whatever is earned during the course of the marriage, 50-50.
So, that wasn't going to happen because she'd be like emotional distress. She called me by getting in the New York Post, blah, 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 blah.
Okay, anyhow, so I know you're going to have to disappear soon, and I want to hit some
not yet.
I do want to,
before you hit Daniel Penny, I just want to mention one other thing that was a big thing. And I printed a Deadline reported that, remember, there was a Diddy or a Sean Diddy Combs argument that he won. And
I saw he had a little victory there. Yeah.
Oh, it was a pretty big victory. The prosecution search warranted his cell and took all his stuff. Supposedly, it was just a normal warrant for everybody in the jail. I guess the judge didn't buy it. Ordered that all documents in this October sweep be
destroyed. Yeah.
Destroyed. Not only that, apparently they have this filter situation in the U.S.
They got
Attorney's
an
Office.
independent third party. It's almost like an in-camera situation.
Yeah,
It'd be
so they
like,
get to,
we're going to
yeah, but they
hire
get to
you,
see.
AB,
Yeah.
to look at these documents.
But
and
they get to
decide-
see it. But they still get to see it. They get
Somebody
to see
does,
the
yes.
intern.
Somebody
Somebody
gets
gets
to
to
see
see it. So it's really not privileged anymore. If somebody, I don't care who it is, gets to see it to determine whether or not. And I guess it was determined that they were lawyers' notes and they were attorney-client privilege. So off they went. So maybe with that on Friday, maybe he gets bail. But we'll follow
Not
it.
a chance in hell.
all
Not
right.
a chance in hell.
I just want to mention that
no.
because that's also in New York. It's supposedly the worst jail in the world, and maybe the worst federal jail in the world. But we've learned that Rice
Yeah,
Street.
let's stack Rice up against that. And see what happens.
So anyhow, with that, that's my report for you today.
Okay, I had a
Hey.
couple of follow-up questions for you because I
boy.
know you're confident that not only will the jury get the case this week, but they'll come to a verdict this week.
Friday afternoon or Monday morning, I think, depending on when how soon they get it.
Yeah, that's to me that's the rubber number. It's because there's stuff's going to bog the system down. More jury instruction fights. They're not done with that yet.
Right.
There's just going to be stuff, I think. Maybe, and then you have that question, and I actually thought about it today in terms of the Penny case, which I have an update on in terms of scheduling, which is very helpful. They got my email, obviously, about trying to help my schedule out by changing their schedule. But if they have closings on Thursday, right,
or Friday morning, right,
or even Friday morning, maybe even worse.
It might be worse, right? I agree. I think
you
they're
either
gonna
have to have a little more
closings on Thursday,
time,
right? I think
or you
they're
got
gonna
to push it to next week.
I think they're having closings on Thursday because she's bringing the jury in Thursday morning.
Thursday at 10. I know they're coming back.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess if they had all day Friday, it's possible. I'd feel better really that they did their job if they came back Monday. I just think,
they may decide, and because they have a lot of forms to fill out, right? They got to decide whether or not they agree on any of these overt acts unanimously or not. So that may take some time.
What's the deal? I can't remember in Georgia with alternates. Do they release them when deliberations begin? I think they do.
I don't remember.
The other option would be they would take part in deliberations without contributing, but they'd stay.
Because in New Jersey and federal courts, they move them to a side. They move them on the side. You get to sit on the side.
But they stay, right?
But they stay. It was only one stay. Wasn't it the Murdoch trial that they released them? We were shocked that they released them.
Ohio and maybe South Carolina, they pull the names out of a drum. Remember that? They pulled the names out of the drum.
That's what they do in New Jersey also. They pull them out, but you keep on the side. You don't let them go because
they're tainted then. And if you need one.
Right. You can't call them back. Right.
Yeah. So I'll have to refresh my recollection on what Atlanta does.
Jenny, why would they need a search warrant for a cell? Well, they do these jail security searches. If everybody gets searched, then they technically don't need the search warrant. That's the way they run the jails for safety and security.
That's right. But just in the absence of that, you need some probable cause to be checking. I saw something. It looked like he was stashing something under. They make stuff up all the time. Come on. Right. If they want to search your cell, they're going to search your cell. And I hear that most of the stuff in there was like pages from legal pads.
Right,
and there was actually an envelope that was marked legal.
Right. It said legal. Right.
It said legal, but that they did not open, they say.
But they took.
They took it and they gave it to that third party filter person.
They say. They gave it before.
I know we don't believe anybody, apparently. We're so cynical. We don't believe anybody.
Well, because we've seen it. We've seen all this. And right. Oh, really?
So they were legal pad pages.
And this happened right after they alleged that he's tainting. They want to charge him with conspiracy to taint witnesses because his phone calls with conversations are asking family members to go back to people to put together a timeline. Now, if he's guilty of what he's guilty of, fine. But don't start with this bullshit stuff,
they say that he's basically paying witnesses. Somehow he's circumventing any sort of trail of the money, and he's paying people to misremember things.
And that's why the search happens right after that's announced. That's what I don't buy, the search warrant. Yeah, it's a generic search warrant that was set up early on. Well, we just happen to take the legal document. Something this is legal from Diddy Combs.
The more incriminating that material might have been, then the bigger win it is for the defense. So we'll just never know.
Sure. Okay, what else do you have for me on this? I'm still with you until 5 to 7.
Okay. Oh, okay. I think Yeah, I don't have any other questions on YSL. I saw some bits and pieces, and of course, saw your fine performance there before my clumsy entry. So, yeah, so I'm good on that.
Okay. Anyone else of our viewers have a specific question on YSL? Speak up now. Speak up, speak up, speak up. We'll be back. This case isn't going away for us. Are all the overt acts still included? Jenny, really good question. They are right now. We'll see tomorrow after there's the motion for the directed verdict, whether or not it's a directed verdict to get some of those overt acts out, because the prosecution didn't prove them, even a little bit in furtherance of any conspiracy, like the marijuana on the bottom of the car, or I remember the 3 Xanax pills at the on the floor of the car is considered an overt act. I mean, really? So we'll see. Tomorrow will be the day. And then 3 faces in a hood with Kayla representing Woody by next part of hearing. Would that have an effect on the trial since she's married to Shannon? Go ahead, Michael.
See, everybody says off to the races with that story. It's irrelevant, and we don't know for sure. I don't have the marriage license. Do you have the marriage license?
No,
I don't have it. But it's irrelevant. I mean, it really.
Well,
is. Unless you could prove some direct bias as a result.
Put that on your list, though, to ask Doug next time he's on our show. Let's ask Doug next time. Put that on your list, because we may.
List.
Well, our viewers have a list, right?
Yes, they do.
The defense, the defense rest. They haven't rested did they rest formally in front of the jury? I don't know. I don't know. If
I think so. Yes,
I know she had the prosecution rest formally. She said I have to bring the jury back in to do that.
Yes,
so,
and she was going to do the same with the defense. And remember, there was that kind of snarky question about, are you going to, just tell me now
drama. Just tell
whether
me
you or are we going to?
Well, be dramatic.
It's kind of part of that whole process. But yeah,
Judge, look at justice served. It wasn't dramatic. It was.
They will see defense rest. Okay, I'm making a note here. Doug Weinstein.
Hey, Madeira Beach, Kara, good you back from your surgery. My sister is going in tomorrow, so I'll let you know. You won't see me for the next 2 days because I'm going to be with it's this 2 days and 2 days next week. So
not live anyway.
Not live. My sister hopefully will be live, and we're glad you're back. Thank you.
Okay, Doug Weinstein, were you invited to the Bumpus wedding? I made a note of that. Okay, so tomorrow, while we're talking YSL, and before I do a little update on Penny, we have a little special edition tomorrow night, 6 o'clock. So we'll launch it at 6 o'clock, where we tear into the Jeffrey Williams probation document, line by line, outrageous demand by outrageous demand. So we'll fire that off tomorrow night at 6 o'clock.
Yeah, and any flaws in the indictment, they may go by way of tomorrow, but if they don't, they're going to the jury on Thursday or Friday. All right, so let's move over. You were our ears, our eyes in the courtroom of Daniel Penny. What's happening there?
Yeah, I've got too many notes. I'm gonna try and I'm gonna do a Reader's Digest version here, because what we learned was kind of the brink of more important. Defense case is underway. State rested. They had the sister of Daniel Penny on. Again, a friend of mine had a great note for us. We get so into these things, and a lot of our viewers do it. We don't really reset all that well. If somebody stumbles on us, like, what the hell are they talking about? It's like we haven't been here. So,
but our viewers have been here. So if they stumble through, that's a problem.
Are you trying to alienate people that might just stumble onto us?
No,
hey, my friend said check out Justice Served TV, but I tuned in. I don't know what the hell they're talking about. So for those people, Jordan Neely died at the hands of Daniel Penny, May 1st, 2023. Daniel Penny was on the subway. Jordan Neely came on, created a ruckus. Daniel Penny says he felt he had to control this guy who ended up dead. So now we're in day 7 of that trial in Lower Manhattan. And we're in the defense case. They've been putting on just a bunch of character witnesses, which surprised me a little bit, Linda, because generally that's, unless the prosecution has opened the door, it's usually a very fine-tuned allowance. The judge even said he might think of 2 to as many as 6. Any guess why he allowed 6 in this case?
Why? No, I don't.
The prosecution effectively opened that door by having people talk about Daniel Penny as a violent guy, as somebody who seemed to be out of control. So the defense comes on and basically showing character witness that this guy's a gentle guy. He went through military training, but it was never like this guy was some sort of killing machine. So on the stand to testify about character, his sister, his mom, 2 Marines that he worked with and trained with and became friends with, even a guy that was in the military somehow. He was a helicopter pilot somewhere, but they met just hanging out on the beach, just, beach bums, and they became good friends. So those folks all testified that Penny is a great guy and would never have done this for any reason other than to help the people in the subway with him.
Michael, let me ask you then this. They can't, no matter what his military record, though, is, they can't open the door to that because those are sealed. Those don't get in no matter
to his
what.
record itself.
Yeah.
To his record. Yeah, no, I mean, we had the guy who trained him on the chokehold. He's already testified. So that came in, but for a very specific purpose. Yeah, you're right. They're not going to open up his, unless he had some sort of conviction based on actions he took while in the military. That's not an issue. It doesn't seem to be a thing. And I think the military folks who testified to his character reinforced that. This guy was, a model soldier. Marine. So what is that?
Let me ask you, was there any, because in New York yesterday, we had horrific incidents. We had somebody who was just branded out a serial killer.
Yes.
He went with 2 huge kitchen, ginormous kitchen knives on 3 very safe areas of New York City in the broad daylight and killed people, just like stabbed them in, I guess the first one may have been a young man going to work at 8:20 in the morning, not far from here, right? Was there any buzz about that and whether that will help Daniel Penny? Because the jury can listen to that. I mean, it's all over New York. I mean, everyone's kind of like a little crazy over it. It's horrible.
There really wasn't a lot of talk about it, either in the halls and certainly wasn't in the courtroom. Not that people are aware. Clearly, they're aware, but it was pretty much unspoken. But I think you're right. If it subtly becomes part of the jury's thought process, who knows? So then there was a doctor testifying in the afternoon, because my question was, they've had all these character witnesses. Maybe Daniel Penny's taking the stand next. That would make sense.
Right.
And then you finish with the medical guys. Well, they went to a medical guy, and there's one more medical guy coming. But the guy who took the stand today is Dr. Alexander Bardet. He's a forensic psychiatrist, trained in Harvard, NYU, blah, blah, blah. He's testified hundreds of times. He's a schizophrenia expert. So he talked about, that's manifested with disorganized behavior, with hallucinations. As he's starting to lay down the foundation for that, I wonder if any of the jury members think that he's going to talk about Daniel Penny having some sort of, because he's really just talking about it generally.
PTSD from military.
Exactly.
Right.
But pretty soon, obviously, it became clear he's talking about Jordan Neely. He talked about the meds that he might be taking for schizophrenia or not taking, because a lot of problem with schizophrenics is they think they're fine. I don't need to take the meds, but that exacerbates the problem. This guy's been involuntarily hospitalized twice for schizophrenia. He looked at thousands of medical records, never talked to anybody at all. He watched all the videos of the witnesses, but never talked to anybody. Just read 4,000 to 5,000 pages of medical reports from 2015 to 2021 relating to Jordan Neely. So he reviews all those records. He talks about the importance of K2. K2, which we know is a synthetic cannabinoid, it is 40 to 100 times stronger than the real thing, than a cannabinoid. 40 to 100 times stronger. That's amazing. He put a 50-page report together. Ultimately, his diagnosis was schizophrenia with K2 effect, which in his mind just exacerbates all the problems that a schizophrenic might go through.
Okay. Did he say that the schizophrenia with K2 effect killed him and dropped him dead from outside the subway car inside the subway car?
No, that doesn't say that. He found, again, based on his review of all the records and the videos, this Neely is, quote, the most serious level of psychosis he's found in his.
Well, I think he should come back and get on the stand after the stabbings here today or yesterday about psychosis. I mean, Neely didn't have a weapon and didn't hurt anybody. Today we had 3 stabbings. I mean, New Yorkers aren't going to be impressed by that. They may say, yes, he has psychosis, but not the most serious. I mean, we live in New York City. We just had these brutal deaths. I mean, that's serious psychosis.
Well, remember,
going on there.
This is the part of the story that nobody really will get to see for themselves. It's being filled in by witnesses and by experts. that 2 minutes before the chokehold was applied. We don't get to see that. We don't get to know what happened there except by, witness testimony, which of course, as we know, is the most unreliable evidence ever, is eyewitness testimony. He talked about Neely using or hearing voices. In fact, he described it as the devil's voice. This was in the records that he was reviewing. He talked about the agitation being very similar to the kind described by the passengers. And they're talking about Neely. That kind of activity, he says, fits right in with the mold. He says there's evidence he was self-medicating, that his K2 use was, quote, extensive. Let me see. Let me get to some good stuff here before you got to go.
No, I'm good. I'm good with you for another. What are we? Another
What
9
time is
minutes.
it?
8,
Oh, okay.
5, 6:50. We're
Oh,
good.
okay, good. Okay, then feel free to jump in with any questions as I'm going through my notes here. K2, interesting.
Here's my question. What did the
Yeah.
jury look like during all this? What are the?
There's still the one guy that yawns. He's in back row, about number 4 or 5, maybe an alternate. Who knows? Because they're set up at 8 and 8, so we're not sure what the physical mix is. And Upper East Side, my friend, the older lady, Upper East Side, she went back to the Brown Bowler today. Everybody, the doctor really generated a lot of note taking. There was no doubt people were watching, taking notes, other than the guy yawning in the back row. And again, you put on this kind of guy in the afternoon.
I'm waiting for, by the way, your Upper East Side one with the hats to wear a fascinator. You know what those are? Those little hats that sit on your head. They were very 1920s, 1930s.
Oh, like a pillbox hat or something?
No,
or what?
no, pillbox is big. These are like little teeny. They're adorable. I'll wear one for you one day.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. She's only worn the beret, the fedora, and this, I call it the bowler. That's a guy's hat, but it's sort of that shape. Let me see. He says Neely had delusions of grandeur and paranoia. Interesting combination there. And he's unwilling to take his meds, showing lack of insight into his own condition. He had body odor, which is typical of somebody who, psychosis.
Well, he's homeless, right?
That too. I mean, you're not worried about those kind of things. You're just not worried about it.
Floa ski arrived late 47 minutes, going to rewind, but want to agree that schizophrenia is very difficult for sufferers and their family and friends. And let's put that in there. So glad you're covering this case in YSL at the same time.
Well,
as we've covered this case, we also said that many big cities have problems with homeless people, and also we don't have enough treatment facilities for people with mental disease. I mean, I was talking to somebody today, and we all know people with mental disease. Some of it gets treated, some of it doesn't get treated. But if you don't have money, it's hard to get treated.
Or the money, you got to figure out where the money's going. I guarantee you there's a lot of waste. But hey, I hear congestion pricing's coming in, so that's going to generate.
Right. That's going to generate nothing, but it's going to go
people are so upset about that. But it's a money thing. It's got to be allocated properly. I guarantee you there's a few dollars waste in New York City. Anyway, so he talked about the Vasquez video, which I call the Zapruder film of this case. It's the most complete video. He says seeing Neely in that as violent and desperate is consistent with psychosis. So overall,
but he's also violent and desperate.
Being choked. I know. I'm not asking for a defense argument at the moment, counselor. I'm just reading the notes.
If I'm sitting there trying to be a fair juror, and that doesn't mean I would decide to convict Neely. I'm just saying if I'm giving the other side, well, I'm trying to go back and forth if I'm sitting there.
Yeah, that's what the jury should be doing, is saying, okay, this guy's the hired gun. He comes in and tells us what the defense wants us to hear, and they've got to sift through it and decide whether they believe it or not. Especially in light of the ME who did the actual autopsy.
Right.
This guy, though, is more behavioralist. He's talking about the behavior, which would lead Penny to believe that those on the subway car and himself were in danger. Let's see. So that was really it. There was no cross-examination, which didn't surprise me a whole heck of a lot. Oh, this was an interesting note, I thought, and I know you're going to go off on this. Okay, there was a reference to not caring for yourself, the body odor, but remember the soiled pants, and there's some question whether it was urine and or feces or just urine. It's still unclear in my mind, based on the testimony. But this doctor says that observation by one witness is consistent with psychosis, because you just, you're you lose bodily control. To me, maybe I've misinterpreted it. I'm thinking this guy thinks he's dying. And part of the fight or flight response is you're evacuating all bodily fluids and all, you know,
Well, you do
fecal
that when
material.
you die also, because you can still have a pulse and be brain dead. And that's the issue here. You evacuate. And that's what the medical examiner, I think, was saying. She could see when that happened on the video.
And
So it
so
wasn't-
I
so
would
I
never
think
think
that's
that's a good
terrible.
thing for the defense. So
Right.
for the
Well, I
defense
wouldn't put it-
doctor to incorporate that, I thought was reaching a little bit too far. So,
I thought that makes it sound that, yeah, I don't like that. If I was sitting in the jury, I wouldn't like that, because if
yeah,
you're dying,
it just,
and why do you need it? You don't need it as defense. If you're gonna,
yeah, you've got, I understand the body odor, typical, you know, because he's homeless and he's not taking care of himself. But to go to the next step, that I think that was a mistake. Okay, so then, as you know, we're getting through this, we're thinking, okay, well, what impact does this have on
Right,
on
right.
Neely? On Penny? Is he going to testify?
right.
So I would now,
Question.
up to this point, I would have said a 50-50 shot. And the reason for that is it's such a different case when it's defense of others, because we've had the others testify. And if the jury believes they were in fact afraid, then that'll help Penny.
And we also had Penny give a statement. So his
Correct.
what he did.
And I've
is-
talked to some folks around the courthouse, and it's amazing how people, I don't think anybody entrenched with a plus Penny or a negative Penny attitude has changed a bit.
No,
Not a
interesting.
bit. Everything they hear, they kind of push into their original position. You know, like he seemed nervous in that interview. And I said, well, you know, he did that voluntarily. Well, of course he did, because he knew he killed the guy. So, I mean, it's very interesting that people who have one angle seem to be riding it to the end of the race. So I think now, based on what I heard in court today,
Yeah.
he is not going to testify.
I agree with you, actually. I always say that putting a client on the stand is the quickest way to get the client to the prison cell. Okay?
But you would admit that in a self-defense case, it's far more common.
Right,
Right.
far more common. But here he's already, it's like what did I say? George Zimmerman the other day. Once the prosecution put in Zimmerman's statement down in Florida with Trayvon Martin, he didn't need to take the stand because the statement was in. I don't think he needs to take the stand. It is what it is. He can only
So
make things worse. He can't make it better.
That's where I think we are. Tomorrow they're off, and then Thursday it's going to be another doctor, Dr. Satish Chandra. And if I spelled that right and I did the research right, he's a forensic pathologist. You may know one. I don't know if you know one or not.
He was on the list last night celebrating our anniversary by doing the
Yes.
show.
That's right. That was quite the operation. Anyway, so he's going to testify, and obviously he's going to have his own opinions about what the autopsy taking ME did. And then it sounds like the judge was like, is that going to wrap it up? And there was kind of a pause and kind of a non-committal yes. So my concern was, why would you put your client on after all this medical testimony? That would be
Right.
really the wrong way to do it.
Because then it only comes down to you and the client. Everything you've done before that's good doesn't matter. Once you put a client on, you have to understand for the way we teach juries and trial advocacy, as you know, Michael, but just for our viewers, if you put the client on, that's the case. That's the whole case. The jury's going to decide based on the client.
Yeah. So that's it. And that's, here's the beauty. I forgot about my alleged email. Pretty sure they're going to take next week off.
Oh, okay.
If they do anything, it might be some jury instruction stuff, or it might be rebuttal. The prosecution was non-committal about whether they're going to have rebuttal or not, depending on this next medical witness. So that means for the time that I'm gone, at least only one verdict is likely to come in. So we'll see.
Now, our Paris Bureau may be covering Friday night. If there's a verdict Friday night, we promise you that our Paris Bureau, which will be Michael,
we're going to check in with the Paris Bureau.
With myself later in the day. It wouldn't be breaking, but it would be later at night. So, we could have a Paris Bureau determination and coverage on Friday.
Okay.
Right? Right. Okay. I'm committing to him, and he's like, we don't know why Max's stream cut out. We all were like, what do you mean to cut out just there? And yes, Poke Mom 7:30. I mean, we see that all the time. And what if he went in and saw somebody sleeping on the subway and said, I'm scared of them, and killed them? And that's, I think, what people are going to be wrestling for if you live in New York, because we all see people on the subway.
And the other side is, thank God for Daniel Penny, because now
that's the other side.
If he is proven guilty in this case, nobody's ever going to step up to save somebody or help somebody. They're going to say,
Well,
no way, man.
maybe not. Maybe not. I mean, it's choking him for 4 minutes or 5 minutes. is the
I
issue.
know the arguments, and I
The
think
arguments,
the
right.
length of time is the.
I was with
fulcrum
somebody
here.
today who said there's no way she's ever letting him go. She's gonna convict him of something.
Yeah.
So it's the way we'll see. Anyhow,
it's fascinating.
Michael, I have
Okay,
to leave you.
I do. I'm leaving too. I don't have the control today, though. So I guess if I
Okay,
just say
so-
goodbye, I would say goodbye.
I guess Disney has the control. So
Okay,
you're
try to do
Michael
the right
Bryant.
thing.
That's right. I'm Linda Kenny Baden. We ask you to subscribe, share, like, and then hit that notification bell, and we will see you soon.